So we talk about the Armed Forces Special Power Act, Army version. Fighting in Kashmir without this protection is like kickboxing with your hand tied. India is losing propaganda war and Pakistan is winning the propaganda war. India can always claim that India is a vibrant democracy. So India can always claim we are a vibrant democracy. We have Human Rights Commission, we have independent judiciary, we have civil society. The world doctrine is a muscular policy. For the muscular zero tolerance policy, we need a strong, extreme use of the force. The report gives the details of the type of human right abuses that happened in India and Pakistan. As far as Pakistan is concerned, it talks about the denial of the freedom and misuse of the preventive detention law, denial of the freedom, misuse of the preventive detention law. For example, Pakistan government is putting the civil society activists in the behind the bar. Pakistan is accused of structural violence. India is accused of unacceptable human rights accuses. Unlawful use of the forces by the security force in 2016, especially use of pellet guns, and enforced disappearance, sexual violence, rapes, restriction of the education because of the curfew, and all the restriction of education, restriction of freedom of assembly and association. Blame the security forces acting with impunity, and victims do not have adequate access. And victims don't have adequate access. State Human Rights Commission does not have any real power. State Human Rights Commission does not have any real power. The report urges India to allow independent mechanism for credible investigation of the human rights abuses. The report urges India to allow independent mechanism for credible investigation of the human rights abuses, especially asks government to repeal Armed Forces Special Power Act of 1919 and Public Safety Act of 1978. So it especially allows the ask government to repeal the Armed Forces Special Power Act of 1990, Public Safety Act of 1978. So the reports urges India to allow an independent mechanism for credible investigation for human rights abuses and especially ask government to repeal the Armed Forces Special Power Act of 1919, Public Safety Act of 1978. Is suggested to end impunity. Impunity. So impunity means not punishing or reducing punishment. And ensure access to justice. The use of pellet shotgun for crowd control. The use of pellet shotgun for the crowd control. Restriction of the internet freedom. Freedom of journalist. Greater powers to the State Human Rights Commission to investigate all type of human rights abuses, including commitment by central authority forces. Response of the government of India. India rejected the report, calling it fallacious, contentious, motivated, and overtly prejudices, and it gives the false narrative. It violates the sovereignty and territorial integrity. According to India, the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part, and the report treats TOK and Gilgit-Baltistan as separate territories. Report is a collective culmination of the acts. It conveniently includes the pattern of the cross-border terrorism and role of Pakistan in cross-border terrorism. It mentioned the Burhan Wani terrorist as a leader. It mentioned Hizbul Mujahideen, Lashkar-e-Taiba as an armed group rather than terrorist organization. It violates the Simla Agreement. According to the government of India, the motivated report ignored that India is a democracy where the people enjoy fundamental rights. There is independent judiciary, human rights commission, vibrant and free India, vibrant and free media. There are civil society reports. Such reports cannot weaken the will of the people and government of India in taking necessary measures to protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of India. Responses of Pakistan. Pakistan has welcomed the report. Pakistan has held that at least international community has acknowledged what Pakistan has been highlighting since the beginning. Pakistan is ready to freely cooperate with the international community with respect to inquiry for human rights violations. International community is not working with the objective of protecting the rights. It is taking the advantage of the situation. Problem is with the Pak sponsoring terrorism. Apspa 1919. Background. The Britishers brought Armed Forces Special Power Act Ordinance 1952 against the Quit India movement. So Britishers fought the Armed Forces Special Power Ordinance in 1942 against the Quit India movement. After independence, it was introduced in the context of insurgency in Northeast. Article 355. A union government responsibility to protect every state from external aggression and internal disturbance. So in Article 355, it is union government responsibility to protect every state from external aggression and internal disturbance. ASPA interceded in the areas and declared as a disturbed area. So it was interceded in the areas, it declared in the disturbed area. The union government as well as the state government can declare an area as a disturbed area, but since 1972, state government has lost power. Not only union government can declare. So union government as well as state government can declare area as a disturbed area, but since 1972, state government has lost the power to declare any area as a disturbed area. Only union government can declare any area as a disturbed area. Area has to be notified under the official gazette. What is a disturbed area? There has been conflict among the member of the community based on the religious, linguistic, or any other ground. There can be conflict among the member of the community based on religious, linguistic, and any other ground. It is realized that Union used armed forces are required in the aid of civil power of the state. So it is realized that Union armed forces are required to aid the civil power of the state. Which state have been voted in the act? Initially, the entire northeast state were at present Assam, Nagaland, Manipur, except the 7 constituent assembly of Imphal. So Assam, Nagaland, Manipur, except the 7 constituencies of Imphal, and Arunachal Pradesh from 2018 removed from the Apspa is removed from some of its part. At present applicable in 8 out of 16 police station out of 16 police station beside Tirap district, Longit and Changlong, Meghalaya. It is only on the 20-meter border along with the Assam Meghalaya border. So it is only 20-meter in the Assam Meghalaya border. In 2018, it was removed from entire state. Tripura, it was removed in 2015. And Punjab, it was from 1983 to 1993. It was removed from Chandigarh in 2012. Jammu and Kashmir introduced in 1919. Jammu and Kashmir introduced in 1990. State government can only revoke. Only union government can revoke. The state government cannot revoke. Only union government can revoke. Apspa. In Jammu and Kashmir, it has been introduced by separate act. Terrorist activities is disrupting the sovereignty and territorial integrity. Insult to the national flag and controversial provisions. Section 4A. That is, any commission, warranted official, non-commissioned official, or any other person of the equivalent rank, after giving warning, can use force, even to the extent of causing death in the situation where the person is acting against the law and order. In force, there is a prohibition on the assembly of more than 5%. Prohibition on carrying arm. Anything can be used as arm. The provision of the Armed Forces Special Power Act and the most controversial is 4A. Armed Forces has a power to destroy any property if it is suspected to be hideout of or fortified position. So Army has a power to destroy any of the property if it is suspected or hideout of the fortified position. 4C, that is the arrest of the person without warrant on the ground of the suspicion that person has committed cognizable offence. So is the arrest of the person without warrant on the ground of the suspicion that the person has committed cognizable offence. 4D, enter or search any house suspected to be the hideout. Goes against the right of privacy. 4D, enter or search any of the house if it's suspected to be hideout. 4G, stop or search any vehicle or seize any vehicle or any vessel, any containments, if any container was suspected to be containing any proclaimed offender, any person committed cognizable offence carrying arms. Section 5, power to search and destroy by armed arms. Section 6, arrest person to be handed over to local police with least amount of delay. So arrested person to be handed over to local police with the least amount of delay. Next controversial provision is Section 7. No proceeding against without the permission of the central government. So there should be no provision against without the permission of central government. No prosecution filing of suit to the legal proceeding against the person acting in a good faith can't be initiated without prior sanction of the central government. So no prosecution filing of the suit for the legal proceeding against the person can be acting in a good faith, can be initiated without prior sanction of the central government. So no provision for the filing of the suit for the legal proceeding against a person who is acting in a good faith can be initiated without prior sanction of the central government. Central government can deny the proceedings, but it can have only valid reason in the written form. So central government can deny proceeding, but it can give valid reason in the written form. So there is a no prosecution filing of the suit for the legal proceeding against a person acting in a good faith can be initiated without the prior sanction of the central government. Present system, central government can deny the proceeding, but it has to give a valid reason in the written form. Expert opinion. The most of the commission suggested that central government should show that it is happened. Finally, things have been left in the court of the judiciary. So Supreme Court can take side, try to humanize it, try to make the things accountable, but it should have been done from the side of the government. Santosh Hegde Committee to probe deaths in Manipur. Santosh Hegde Committee to probe the deaths in Manipur. It clearly suggested to make the laws more human and security forces more accountable. So it suggested law to make more human and security forces more accountable, to make law more human. Justice BP is even ready commission to examine the violation in the northeast. It was very harsh on Apspa. It symbolizes hate oppression and high-handedness action. It symbolizes its hate oppression, high-handedness action. It suggested to repeal it. It suggested to make relevant changes in the Unlawful Activity Prevention Act of 1967, make clear provision with respect to the power of the armed forces, establish a grievance cells in each district so that people can register their grievances and action can be taken. So establish grievance cells so that people can register and take and action can be taken. Second ARC, fifth ARC report on the public order. It's also suggested to repeal because it leading to feeling of alienation. So second ARC, fifth report on the people order. It also suggested to repeal because it leading to the feeling of alienation. Supreme Court judgment in Naga People Human Right versus Government of India in 1997. So Supreme Court judgment in Naga People Human Right Initiative versus Government of India in 1997 unconstitutional. Supreme Court held that law is constitutional. Government can declare any area as a disturbed area on its own, or it can be done only on the recommendation of state government. Supreme Court upheld that validity also suggests impunity cannot be tolerated. Impunity cannot be tolerated. Central government can impose the law. Suo moto means on its own. Article 35. It's in union responsibility. It cannot be and can do suo moto. However, there should be no scope for the arbitrary power. So, power to declare an area as a disturbed area is to be subject to the judicial review. So, the power to declare any area as a disturbed area subject to judicial review act cannot be imposed permanent on the permanent basis. There should be review after 6 months. So, has to be reviewed after 6 months. Authorized officers should be strictly follow do's and don'ts, and authorized officers should strictly follow do's and don'ts. Supreme Court had also issued guideline in 2016. This was a PIL filed by the relatives of the victim which have lost their lives in the Northeast. So Supreme Court have issued guidelines in 2016. It was by PIL or by the relatives of the Northeast which have lost their life in the Northeast. Supreme Court were harsh. First, accountability is a facet of the rule of the law. So accountability is a facet of the rule of the law. It does not matter whether there was a common man, militant or terrorist. Supreme Court asserted that in the law, the same is same for everyone. Right of the light applies to in the case of the terrorist. Killing enemy is not the only solution. Excessive beyond necessary cannot be permitted. Aspa was envisaged in a good faith to allow army to make military operation in a good faith. Was envisaged. So AFSA was envisaged to allow army to make military operation in a good faith without being subjected to harassment, but it was not given to confer impunity. Even the armed forces cannot escape investigation. Armed forces will have to give consideration to the provision of international humanitarian law. Public Safety Act 1978, lawless law. It is preventive detention law of the state government. It is preventive detention law of state government. Public Safety Act 1978. Initially, it was brought by Farooq Abdullah government against the timber mafia. It was brought by Farooq Abdullah government. However, now use again protester objection. Answer: psychological multiple angle. So there is also colonial. This is psychological angle, and there is a colonial legacy. Interlocutor report and their recommendation. Up till now, 4 times this exercise has been done. KC Pant, NN Vora, MM Ansari, Professor Rahat Kumar, and Dilip Pandogkar, Dinesh Sharma in present NDA government. Government should set up a committee to review all the central government acts, amendment and review of the Armed Forces Special Power Act and Public Safety Act. The temporary provisions should be made special. Governor should be appointed in consultation with the chief minister. Basically, chief minister should be proposed the name. So governor should be appointed in consultation with the chief minister. Basically, chief minister should propose the name. Separate regional council for Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, transfer the executive and legislative functions. Financial power. So there should be separate regional council for Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, and transfer the executive, legislative function and financial powers. Stone pelters and political prisoner against whom there is no serious charges should be released. So stone pelters and political prisoner with whom there are not serious charges should be released. Return of the Kashmiri Pandit. Financial package like Northeast for the Northeast. Declare hill areas, remote areas as special development zone. Proper implementation and monitoring of the development plans. Respect the autonomy. And Prime Minister Modi on 15th August 2017, the solution to Kashmir cannot be bullied or by abuses. 5C by government: compassion, communication, coexistence, confidence building measure and consistency. So compassion, communication, coexistence, confidence building measure and consistency. Dowal doctrine is a muscular policy. India should not appear weak. That is offensive defensive. According to the report, Ministry of Home Affairs, government policy proactive step to secure border to prevent cross-border terrorism and to contain militants. According to the report of the Ministry of Home Affairs, the government policy is to proactive step and to secure and prevent cross-border terrorism and to contain militancy, restoration of democracy and civilian administration, sustained peace process, grievance redressal, skill development, Udan and Himayat. Udan and Himayat. Infrastructure development. Prime Minister had announced special development assistance for the infrastructure development worth 8,000 crore rupees. 80,068 crore rupees. Prime Minister had announced development assistance for infrastructure development worth 80,000 crore rupees. What is the main? To find out the strength and weaknesses. We need an intellectual understanding of the problem. Goal. What is the goal in the Kashmir? The peace and normalcy. And to counter anti-India sentiments, counter propaganda of the Pak and information warfare, proper monitoring. For the successful policy, we should have two prerequisites. First one, intellectual understanding of the problem. Second one is clarity of the goals. SWOT analysis, peace and normalcy. Addressing the alienation of the people by addressing their genuine grievances. Kashmir is an extremely complex problem with the domestic and international dimensions. It is also important that India should not succumb to the international pressure or to the propaganda war. So India should not succumb to the international pressure or propaganda war. We cannot overlook the fact that there is a huge unrest among the youth. So succumb means fall to resistant pleasure temptation. So it is important that India should not succumb to the international pressure or propaganda war, and we cannot overlook the fact that there is a huge unrest among the youth, and it is necessary to look at the psychological measure rather than just the economic and security measures. There are other reports which showing the increasing incident of psychological disorder, lack of professional support, and the government should try to provide some meaningful system of grievance redressals. Government should try to provide some meaningful system of grievance redressal. This basic freedom, if denied to the people, freedom of the press, stone pelting remains the only option. If the basic freedom denied to the people, freedom of press, the stone pelting remains the only option. A focus of the approach towards Jammu and Kashmir. There should be dedicated ministry, use of social media. If the media can radicalize people, it can also use to de-radicalize. Perception management, work from the perception management, reform the mainstream media as it takes a very polarized view many times. The proper handling of the youth should be there. Government should take a transformational approach. Army has to bring attitudinal change among the locals towards them and keep controversial issue at the back burner. Politically, bold approach is needed. So back burner means postpone. Back burner means postpone. So you need to keep the controversial issue at the back burner and politically bold approach is needed. For example, create a scope for Hurriyat conference to enter into political mainstream. Create a political scope for Hurriyat conference to enter into political mainstream. Adequate step to be taken to check the cross-border terrorism. Star of insurgency fund. And so political security forces, intellectual media should be on the intellectual footing. Should be similar footing. Politicians, security forces, intellectual and media should be on similar footing. Establish high-level committee to address the grievances like event of Kunkan Pushpura district. So establish high-level committee to address the grievances like Kunan Pushpura district. There has been alleged that there is a rape of 100 women by security forces. So Kunan Pushpura, it happened in 1991. There's an alleged mass rape. So Patriwal incident where the 49 Kashmiri civilians were dead in 2000. So the Patriwal incident. So Patriwal, 5 civilians were killed as a branding them as a militant. 5 civilians were killed, branding them as a militant. That's Shofian tragedy. There's a rape of Kashmiri girl in Shofian territory. Then there is a Bijhera firing. There is a firing on the peaceful protest. That is Bijhera firing. So government should address so that separatists should not be able to manipulate the grievances of people. Government should address these issues so that separatists should not be able to manipulate the grievances of the people. To what extent the Article 370 bear a marginal note is a temporary with respect to Jammu and Kashmir, K Apspa indefinitely defeat the fundamental principle of Indian history. Keeping Apspa for indefinitely defeat the fundamental principle of Indian states.